Revealed, how a billionaire's shocking fake marriage transformed his wife's life unexpectedly. Chase Donovan sat in the corner of a dimly lit cafe, the weight of Manhattan pressing down hard around him. By all accounts, he lived a life most would envy, yet loneliness clung to him like a shadow. He was isolated in a world defined by glitz and ambition, a self-made billionaire drowning in a sea of expectations. Corporate scandals threatened to capsize his tech empire while the media twisted his philanthropic efforts into fodder for gossip. He clenched his jaw, the irony stark. He had everything, yet felt like nothing. The cafe buzzed with the hum of chatter and the aroma of roasted beans, but Chase's mind raced elsewhere. A peculiar idea was brewing. He needed an ally, someone to help mitigate the relentless scrutiny that suffocated his every move. That's when Sarah Thompson entered his life, an artist whose dreams were trapped in a dilapidated Brooklyn apartment. Their worlds collided when he approached her with an outrageous proposal, a fake marriage. He needed legitimacy, she craved financial security. The arrangement would give each of them what they desperately desired, or so they thought. His heart raced as he extended the offer, each word intentional yet tinged with uncertainty. Could they really form a connection anchored in such a fragile premise? Faced with the prospect of losing his carefully built empire, Chase hesitated, the very foundation of his identity jeopardized. What would it mean for him to turn to someone like Sarah, an artist crafting beauty amidst chaos? Would she judge him as the media did, or would she see through to the man beneath the veneer of wealth? He swallowed hard, his throat tight. He was caught in a moral dilemma. By building a life with Sarah, would he be embracing honesty, or further entrenching himself in deception? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days spun into a blur, Chase found himself watching Sarah transform her emotions into vibrant strokes of paint. She poured her heart into her work while he revealed pieces of himself he thought long buried. But as their relationship deepened amid the chaotic backdrop of their respective lives, cracks began to show. An unguarded social media post led to whispers, questioning the authenticity of their union, and suddenly, the facade was threatening to unravel. Chase felt a cold sweat envelop him. Abandonment loomed, a gnawing fear that the real connection he cultivated with Sarah was teetering on the brink of exposure. One evening, while going through family archives laden with dust, he uncovered letters that would unravel his understanding of loyalty. The burden of legacy pressed against his chest, causing his breath to hitch. How many truths had he buried beneath spreadsheets and board meetings? The anguish mounted. Sarah faced the risk of being defined by his scandal, and he felt her freedom slipping away alongside his grip on the life he had curated. Did their alliance stem from genuine ambition, or was it merely an escape from their encumbered lives? As uncertainty thickened, everything they had built began to hang in the balance. Just as Chase was ready to confront the shadows of his past, an unexpected visitor knocked at Sarah's door. A glance passed between them, a flicker of fear accompanied by expectation, setting the stage for revelations that could either destroy them or force them to the truth. Would they stand united against the storm, or was this moment the tipping point of despair? Sarah opened the door slowly, an unsettling apprehension coursing through her veins. The figure that stepped into the dimly lit room was a blast from the past. Robert, her former mentor, whose stern presence had once been a guiding light but had morphed into a haunting reminder of the limitations she had tried to escape. His eyes searched the room, landing on Chase, who stood silently at the periphery, an uninvited melancholic witness to the reunion. "Sarah," Robert said, his tone mingling warmth with an element of judgment. "It's been too long. I heard about your marriage." He gestured vaguely, as if the word itself carried a stench. Chase watched the interaction closely. The walls felt as if they were closing in, suffocating him with the weight of unspoken expectations. Sarah's face shifted, masking eagerness with reserve. He remembered the reasons they had tethered their lives together: mutual survival. Yet, standing here, the purpose of their arrangement faltered before his eyes. "You look well," Sarah replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was caught between nostalgia and the reality of her current life. Chase felt an instinctive blush of jealousy prick at him. What authority did Robert have in her past life, and what claims could he stake in her present? Robert turned his attention fully to Chase, appraisal evident in his steady gaze. "I wasn't aware you were a part of this. Did you finally see the light, Sarah?" His words were wrapped in icy sarcasm, a thinly veiled attempt to gauge the sincerity of their arrangement. Chase's heart raced. The mockery twined with the looming threat of exposure felt like knives burying into his back. He had cautiously stepped out of the corporate spotlight and into an uncharted emotional territory, and here it was danger invading, compelling him to defend this connection that had grown remarkably deep, yet felt so fragile. "Robert, it's not what you think," Sarah said, her voice firm. She positioned herself between Chase and her past, as if to shield the burgeoning fragile bond they shared. "This is my choice." But Chase noticed the tremor in her hand, betraying the turmoil of her mind. That he felt an impulsive urge to step forward, to assert his place at her side, but hesitation gripped him. Did he want to be her protector, or was it merely a projection of his own fears? The weight of his wealth suddenly felt undeserved next to her burgeoning spirit, a tool he wielded like a shield, but that also pushed him further into isolation. "We're both pursuing our dreams," he interjected, needing to shift the focus, the sudden defensiveness consuming him. "This partnership is about mutual benefit, supporting each other's aspirations." "Is it?" Robert countered, a condescending chuckle slipping through as he focused back on Sarah. "You're playing a dangerous game, pointing towards the mysteries of a billion-dollar enterprise without understanding what it might cost you personally. It's foolhardy." Chase felt the tension stretch like a catapult ready to snap. Their alliance was already a delicate tapestry, and Robert's words were unraveling it thread by thread. Maybe Robert was right, perhaps he was all talk. Could he truly support Sarah through the chaos that his life was fast becoming? As the conversation morphed into an argument, Chase found himself retreating into silence, grappling with a sudden crisis of identity. Would he remain at arm's length, tethered to the financial benefits, or would he confront the fears blossoming within him? The doubt got louder. The loudest whisper echoing was the ultimate question of authenticity. Abruptly, as if sensing the fracture in the air, a phone buzzed on the table, snapping them all back to reality. Chase's heart sank as he glanced at the notification, a headline that screamed of scandal. His world was already blurred. This was the moment it could shatter entirely. As Sarah reached for the phone, his breath quickened. How would her reaction shape their fragile truth? The tremors of impending chaos cast long shadows across possibilities he had yet to confront. Chase shuffled back, bracing himself for the storm brewing within her, waiting to see if they would rise unscathed or fall beneath the weight of the lies they had stitched together. But there was one thing he knew for sure: the truth was no longer just a tool, it was a monster lurking at the edge of their broken alliance, ready to claim its next victim. How could he salvage their shared path when the shadows closed in? The phone vibrated with an almost mocking urgency as Sarah's fingers groped for the screen. Chase could feel the electricity crackling in the air, a palpable shift that altered their already fraught atmosphere. The headline dominated her gaze, and for a moment, her expression oscillated between disbelief and the creeping chill of dread. "Sarah, don't," Chase began, instinctively stepping closer, wanting to shield her from whatever storm lay in that notification. But there was a weight in the air that held him back, his uncertainty anchoring him in place. Her eyes flickered through the text, and frustration clawed at him as he fought against the rising tides of doubt swirling within him. Was he merely a pawn in this game that seemed to accelerate beyond both their grips? As she finally exhaled, dropping the phone onto the table like it was scorched, Chase braced for the fallout. "This isn't just about us anymore," she said, a quiet firmness blanketing the underlying tremor in her voice. Standing before Robert felt like a resurgence of her past, a raw reminder of the doubts she had grappled with for years. "I need to confront this, Chase. It's my life, and I refuse to let someone else dictate my narrative." His heart raced. Her words were stirring, yet the specter of Robert loomed over them like a storm cloud refusing to disperse. But what about us? What if this changes everything? He searched her eyes for any flicker of confusion, apprehension, anything that might suggest she was wavering. It already is changing everything, she murmured, her voice rising above the noise created by Robert's laughter. She faced her former mentor, steadying herself. You don't get to come back and treat me like I haven't evolved beyond your expectations. This partnership with Chase isn't about escaping your shadow, it's about carving out my own identity. Robert's smile faltered, replaced by a cautious appraisal. What a naive notion, Sarah. Do you really believe this facade can withstand the scrutiny? Your shiny new life is built on shifting sands. The derision in his tone birthed a deeper insecurity within Chase, awakening the haunting awareness of social capital. Did the wealth he once embraced become a trap instead? As Sarah confronted Robert, something shifted. She radiated a newfound determination, almost tangible, like a beacon drawing Chase closer to her orbit. In that moment, he felt something awaken within himself, a dormant ambition caught between the shadows of doubt and the riotous colors of capability. However, could that revelation align with the reality at hand? You want to know what's really dangerous? She shot back with sudden ferocity. It's living a life dictated by your past, succumbing to fear of judgment for a decision that's not even yours. This may be the start of something far beyond your understanding. The transformation in her demeanor was electric, a defiance he had only glimpsed before. Chase's mind spiraled. Did he truly comprehend the depths of her aspirations? Was he spirited enough to weather the turbulent journey she was embarking on? He needed to decide. The distance he had maintained was fraying, tethered by his instinctual desire for validation in her world. As Robert stepped back, uncharacteristically quiet, Sarah squared her shoulders. I refuse to belittle my choices based on your misconceptions. Chase and I are forging our path together, not under your shadow. This is our story. The strength in her declaration resonated, reverberating through the cracks beneath Chase's resolve, and yet, doubt flickered. Could he rise to meet her vast ambition? Or was he bound to falter, forever in the background of someone else's triumph? Right now, the world is watching, Chase thought, an echo of urgency clouding his mind. The truth no longer felt merely invasive, it threatened to dismantle everything he had begun to embrace. He took a deep breath, his heart pummeling against his chest. In that instant, he understood, the time had come to face his fears, to reveal his true self not just to her, but to the world. But was he ready to move beyond the shadows of wealth and insecurity? Or did further chaos loom larger than he dared to imagine? The uncertainty made his pulse race, drawing him to the critical edge of decision just as a new notification pinged on Sarah's phone, a fresh twist in their tangled narrative. Chase's gaze shifted away from Sarah, her fervent stance against Robert crystallizing a determination in him he hadn't recognized before. It wasn't just about her, the stakes had risen, intertwining their fates in ways he hadn't anticipated. Uncertainty gnawed at him, in the chaotic dance of ambition and fear. His confidence teetered dangerously close to collapse. What would it mean to truly support her? The weight of his past flickered like a shadow over his ambitions. As Sarah's earlier words echoed in his mind, he grasped the significance of carving his identity. No longer a mere beneficiary of privilege, he felt called to redefine his existence beyond the gilded restraints that wealth had imposed on him. What can I bring to this partnership? He questioned himself, struggling against the tide of doubt. As they departed from the tense confrontation, Sarah's momentum seemed magnetic, drawing him back into the realm of possibility. You need to be the one to initiate this, she had said earlier. The realization struck like lightning. She believed in her own potential fiercely, yet doubt could fracture this burgeoning faith if he didn't adequately match it. Chase. Sarah's voice cut through his internal chaos. Are you with me? Always, he lied, but what did that commitment truly entail? Next came the onslaught of notifications, a flood spilling into Sarah's phone, each cry for attention sharpening the tension they had just navigated. Headlines, opinions, speculation, a reflection of the world's relentless gaze. He saw Sarah reading intently, her brow furrowing with every glimpse. What were they about to dive into together? Just news about Robert's claims, she said, dismissing the bombardment. But he could see the tension coiling in her posture. The fight was on, unfolding more than just a professional drama. It was an arena where her very identity was now being reconstructed in real time. Have you thought about how you want to confront this? The question slipped past the apprehension, an instinctual desire to offer support even as he wrestled to find his footing. He needed to step up, not just to affirm her courage but to cement his own place beside her. I'm going to take control of my narrative, she replied, her eyes igniting with determination. This is my moment, and I can't let Robert's words define me any longer. The fierceness in her conviction ignited a spark within Chase. They were going to tackle this uphill battle together, but he needed to brace himself. The realization struck hard, he wasn't just a bystander, he was an integral part of her journey. But who am I in this story? He asked himself, seeing how easily the boundaries blurred between their ambitions. Tensions outside burrowed deeper inside, forcing Chase to focus. Sarah was dependable, she had carved new pathways she had almost forgotten she could pave. Yet, could he truly provide the support she needed? The shifting ground beneath them felt familiar, like a quicksand that promised acceleration yet threatened to drag them down. Determined to solidify his new role, he scanned the room for potential plans. Rachel, a journalist from the office, had once hinted at the transformative power of media. Perhaps they could control the narrative instead of allowing it to eclipse their identities. Sarah, what if we consider, he started, hesitating as words tangled in his throat, terrified of vocalizing ideas that felt bigger than him. But then, he saw her. The palpable fire in her eyes pushed him onward. What if we hold a press conference? Share our story and dismantle Robert's narrative together. She paused, as if he had unveiled a chest of treasure buried beneath pressure and chaos. Yes, she gasped, a smile breaking through the veil of tension. Yes. If I'm to confront my past, I do it head-on. With you by my side. In that electrifying connection, Chase felt a flicker of courage igniting within his heart. Together, they could redefine the scenario, bending public perception back to their narrative. But the enormity of this commitment loomed larger than the threat posed by Robert's influence. Chase felt the ferocity of decision coursing through him, heightening the stakes as he prepared to step back into a world where scrutiny and ambition coexisted perilously. As they began to strategize, a sudden knock at the door disrupted their focus, reverberating through their thoughts. Unanticipated and jarring, it heralded a force beyond their control. Could it be another messenger from Robert's camp? Chase's heart raced with fear. What now? He thought, the thick tension in the air suggesting that a storm was racing toward them, ready to reveal whether they could fortify their alliance against the oncoming tempest or if they would be swept up in chaos once more. Chase's breath hitched as he exchanged a fraught glance with Sarah. The knock at the door felt like a countdown, a palpable signal that whatever awaited them on the other side would either elevate their newfound resolve or dismantle it entirely. Do you want me to get it? He asked, his voice a tentative whisper, uncertainty gnawing at his confidence. No, Sarah replied, her mind racing as a storm of thoughts gathered. It's time we face everything head-on. She stood, her hand brushing against the desk as she steeled herself for a confrontation. With a deep, steadying breath, Chase opened the door. Standing there was Victor, the PR consultant they had reluctantly decided to bring in, a man known for his persuasive tactics and sharp wit but who also came shackled with a reputation for muddying narratives for the sake of spectacle. Hey, Victor greeted, his smile holding a predatory edge. I heard there's some excitement brewing. Mind if I join? Chase's gut twisted. This was the moment where clarity met chaos. Invite Victor in, and they risked inviting sensationalism, shut him out, and they might miss critical support. Sure, come in, Sarah said before Chase could voice hesitation. We were just discussing strategy. She motioned for Victor to take a seat, and as he settled in, a readiness to engage overshadowed her lingering doubts. They were entering a new world of media manipulation, the rules were undefined, and each decision would have ripples they couldn't yet foresee. "So, what's your plan?" Victor leaned forward, fingers steepled, his eyes glinting with a mixture of interest and mischief. Chase looked to Sarah, then back at Victor. "We want to hold a press conference. Share our side of the story, confront the allegations, and redefine the narrative surrounding Robert's claims." His words hung in the air, an assertion of purpose wrapped in a shroud of anxiety. Victor's brows rose, and for a brief moment, he regarded them as if they were piecing together a puzzle he'd anticipated. "Bold move," he finally said. "But understand, the media will only be as kind as you are fascinating. We need to hit hard, draw in their interest. Sensationalism sells." Chase bristled internally at the thought. Did he want sensationalism to shape this critical moment? But then he thought of Sarah, the determination wrapped around her like armor, and questioned whether he was prepared to compromise for the sake of protecting her. "Can we do that without losing the essence of our truth?" Chase interjected, a desperate need for integrity pushing through. "I don't want to fabricate a story. This is about Sarah." Victor waved a dismissive hand. "No one cares about modesty in headlines. The world craves drama. You can present the truth, but package it in a way that sells. Lean into the tempest. This can work for you." The conversation pitted Chase's instincts against Victor's provocations. For every point Victor made, Chase felt Sarah's presence like a grounding force, a reminder of why they were embarking on this perilous path together. "People will try to drown you in negativity, Chase," Sarah said, leaning forward. "We need to create a narrative that elevates us without veering into deception. Can we do that?" "Of course," Victor assured, his tone insincere yet hopeful. "Harness their curiosity, and they'll be drawn to your authenticity. You become the protagonists in this drama. The audience will root for you." Chase felt an unsettling mix of resolve and unease. A part of him was terrified of playing the part, and yet as he looked at Sarah, he felt compelled by a deeper connection to redefine his limits. This was about resilience, not performance, about stepping into the chaotic unknown with intention and integrity. As the plan snowballed under Victor's manipulative guidance, Chase lost track of time. But within the whirlwind of ideas, an unfamiliar sensation stirred in him, a burgeoning sense of ownership. He began to recognize facets of his own strength rise to the surface. "Let's put everything together by tomorrow evening," Chase proposed. "We need to act fast." Just as they began to plot their moves, an ominous message pinged on Sarah's phone. With a quick swipe, her expression darkened. "It's Robert," she announced, a tremor in her voice. "He's proposed a private meeting." Chase felt the floor shift beneath him once more. This unexpected development wasn't just a hurdle, it threatened to upend their progress. "Do we trust him?" he asked, voice taut with the weight of potential betrayal. In that moment, he was faced with a critical decision: pursue the meeting and risk falling into Robert's trap, or prepare for the press conference without backtracking. How much trust could he extend when the stakes were so high? The urgency of the question clung heavily in the air, and Chase could feel the walls closing in, daring him to make a choice that would define not just their next steps, but his emerging role in Sarah's story. Chase's mind raced, each pulse of his heartbeat echoing the weight of the choice before him. Trusting Robert felt dangerously reckless, but ignoring this opportunity could mean forfeiting control over the narrative altogether. Chase inhaled deeply, attempting to suppress the rising tide of anxiety. This was not merely about him, it was about Sarah, the woman who had shown him the kind of courage he had only ever dreamed of possessing. "Sarah," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "What do you think? Are you willing to risk a meeting with him?" She hesitated, her dark eyes studying the floor, the weight of Robert's history looming over them. The room felt like a pressure cooker, and Chase sensed that both their futures depended on this moment. "Robert's a master manipulator," Sarah finally said, her tone marked with reluctance. "But if we're going to redefine our narrative, we might need to confront him face to face. Resilience burned within her, igniting a flame of determination in Chase. He thought back to everything Sarah had endured, her journey laden with betrayal and confusion. If they could step into that room together, it could shift the power dynamic not just with Robert, but within themselves. Chase's internal struggle began to morph into a strategic plan. He was slowly understanding that his strength lay in collaboration, revealing himself as a partner not just in battle, but in articulation. "Let us do it," he declared, the decision solidifying. "We need to prepare. We can't walk in there blind." Victor, who had been silently studying their exchange, leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Good plan, but preparation isn't just about facts. You need a narrative. Chase, what story do you want to tell about Robert?" Thoughts of Robert's treachery surged through Chase's mind like a flashback. This was a man who had turned Sarah's life upside down, and now Chase was to forge a narrative that could empower them both. "We need to frame him as the villain of this tale, but still keep the integrity intact," he replied, surprising even himself with his clarity. "Compelling," Victor replied, an odd twinkle of approval in his eyes. "You're beginning to see the big picture. You're right to push back. Focused anger can be powerful." Each word Victor uttered felt like an unyielding force, moving Chase closer to understanding the nexus of personal conviction and external perception. As the trio began to draft a framework for their press conference, the atmosphere shifted. A promise of solidarity grew between Chase and Sarah, their resolve intertwining in a way that fortified them against the crisis looming ahead. He was not just a cog in Sarah's story, he was becoming a co-author, carving out space for himself in an unpredictable narrative. Hours slipped away as Victor guided them through rehearsed responses with tantalizing suggestions on how to provoke emotion. Chase danced between anxiety and mastery, continuously questioning whether he was diluting the truth for theatrics. But as he watched Sarah refine her own message, strengthening her voice, he felt a stirring of unrestrained faith in her resilience. "Chase," Sarah said, breaking through his reverie, "this isn't just about Robert. We have to prepare ourselves for how people will react." The thought of facing critics made the tension in Chase's chest tighten, but he nodded, meeting her gaze. "We need to be true to ourselves. If we present genuine vulnerability, we can disarm them." This realization, a blend of strategy and humanity, reignited the spark that had flickered dimly under pressure. They were shaping their own narrative, one that demanded authenticity and bravery. By the time the night wore on, Chase felt the emerging contours of his own professional identity as he took steps towards something new. He was unlocking paths inside himself, yet, as they finalized their strategy, the phone buzzed again, another notification from Sarah's device. This time, it felt more sinister. Both Chase and Sarah paused, emotions swirling, shadowing the fragile hope they forged. "What is it?" Chase asked, a sense of foreboding creeping into his voice. "It's a video," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper, fear creasing her brow. "Of us. It's going viral." The walls they had carefully built were beginning to crack, revealing the jagged fissures of scrutiny ready to engulf them. Chase's heart pounded, each beat echoed a single desperate thought: were they ready to face everything that awaited them now? He turned to Sarah, seeing the fiery determination reflected in her eyes that reminded him of the strength they had kindled together. This was just the beginning, and the stakes had never felt higher. In that moment of uncertainty, Chase confronted the harsh reality that they were now at the center of an unwelcome storm. But could they endure it, or would it finally pull them apart? The answer loomed ominously over them, as they steeled for the fight ahead. The dim light from Sarah's phone cast a glow on their faces, illuminating the mounting shadows of uncertainty. Chase's mind whirred in overdrive, the implications of the viral video crashing against the walls of his resolve. They needed a plan, and fast. Everything they had built, their burgeoning partnership, the firm ground they had just found, now teetered on the edge of a precipice. "What's in the video?" he pressed, swallowing the lump that formed in his throat. The answer skated dangerously close to the heart of the danger they had begun to confront. Sarah's eyes flicked to the screen, and he could tell she was struggling with what she saw. "It's footage from our last meeting with Robert. The way he manipulated us, his words, our reactions. It's damning." Chase clenched his fists, anger mixed with fear tightening in his chest. With every passing moment, the specter of Robert loomed larger in their lives. He has turned this into a spectacle. "We need to reclaim the narrative before it spirals even further out of control," he stated, a newfound urgency fueling him. As their eyes met, Chase felt a palpable shift occur within him, like the tight strings of his anxieties snapped, replaced by the distinct hum of determination. The line between being reactive and proactive was blurring, and he was resolute to seize back control. "Let us address it head-on," Chase said, the words crystallizing into a mission. "We can't hide, we have to use this moment to send our own message. What was captured might show our vulnerability, but it can't strip away our truth." Sarah considered this, the faintest flicker of hope lighting her features. "You're right." Her resolution echoed in the room. "If we own our narrative, we can twist this situation to our advantage. We can spin it to highlight how we are standing against manipulation." Victor, who had remained silent, now leaned forward, eyes glinting with a strange excitement. "This could be your catalyst. Use their scrutiny to galvanize your resolve. People respect strength, and there's nothing more powerful than turning their expectations against them." Chase absorbed this as the pieces seemed to fall into place. The video, which threatened to enshroud them, could instead become the platform from which they would launch forward. Vulnerability could be the very foundation upon which their strength was built. "Let us draft a response," he initiated, feeling the pulse of a plan forming. "We'll take their narrative, twist it, reclaim it, and set our terms. We need to express our commitment to transparency, to authenticity, while making it clear that we want to be bullied." As they worked tirelessly, Chase felt stabs of self-doubt creeping in. Was this the right approach? The weight of leading this crusade pressed on him like a tidal wave. Yet, each word they typed seemed to reinforce not just their narrative but his identity as someone worthy of standing beside Sarah, courageous and steadfast. "There's power in collective honesty," Sarah noted, her fingers dancing over the keyboard. "If we can connect with people emotionally, it'll shift the perception. We'll distance ourselves from how Robert has portrayed us." They dissected and fine-tuned their message, the essence of Chase's convictions molding with Sarah's insights. As the night darkened further, a dawning realization blossomed within him, brighter than the anxieties that had plagued him before. He was not just collaborating. He was contributing his voice, intertwined with hers, a shared vision of resilience against their shared adversity. Just as they finished up, the phone buzzed once more, slicing through the air like a gavel rapping against a wooden block. Chase felt his breath hitch as the screen lit up for another notification, a tiny universe of hope and anxiety colliding once more. "What is it this time?" he asked, the tension tightening around them. Sarah's face drained of color, and before she could answer, he felt a pull in his chest, as if the ground beneath him began to unravel. "It's another video," she whispered, the gravity of her words sinking like stone. Chase clenched the edge of the table, the uncertain arc of their journey shifting yet again, and with it, the stakes climbing higher. Would this reveal be the tipping point that defined their narrative, or would it further ensnare them in Robert's cunning game? "Whatever it is, we face it," Chase asserted, his voice steeled with a resolve that felt different this time, imbued with the strength of shared purpose. "We've come too far to slip back now." They leaned in together, encased in a cocoon of determined silence, each heartbeat echoing a promise to themselves: they would rise from the ashes of this chaos. But the finale of the next revelation loomed. If they could truly find their footing amidst the tempest, it would demand everything they had. Yet the question remained: were they strong enough to emerge unscathed, or would they be swallowed whole by the very forces they sought to confront? Chase felt the air become electric with unspoken anxiety as Sarah tapped her finger nervously on the table, each pulse matching the tempo of his racing heart. Another video. He could only imagine what it contained, the potential rabbit hole it could lead them down. He forced himself to breathe deeply, pushing back the wave of dread that threatened to engulf him. "Show me," he said, his voice surprisingly steady despite the panic clawing at him from within. He leaned toward her, anticipation mingling with uncertainty, ready to confront whatever this new challenge held. With a hesitant hand, Sarah tapped the screen, and a distorted image flickered to life. At first, it was nothing but grainy footage, disjointed pieces distorted by angle and poor lighting. But as the line of dialogue came into focus, Chase's stomach dropped. A meticulous cut of Robert's voice, venom-laden and ruthless, played back their last meeting. Every subtle manipulation, every effort to undermine their confidence was laid bare for the world to see, woven together like a tapestry of betrayal. This isn't just about us anymore. This is just the beginning of his calculated assault, Chase said, voice low, barely contained. His mind spiraled, wrestling with the implications. He could see how Robert was using them as puppets in a game he had all but rigged. It was a vendetta masked as entertainment, and suddenly they weren't just victims, they were unwilling participants in a narrative written by a master manipulator. Think about this strategically, Sarah said, casting her eyes on Chase, determination glimmering in her gaze. How can we turn this to our advantage? This isn't merely about defending ourselves, this is our opportunity to showcase Robert's tactics against us, to reveal his true nature. A spark ignited within Chase's psyche. The real question began to crystallize. How could they use Robert's tactics, a weapon wielded against their integrity, to showcase their authenticity? It demanded a resolution as sharp as the cutting edge of a sword. Chase nodded, the adrenaline surging through his veins, momentarily washing away the lingering doubt. We'll create a response that not only addresses this video but frames Robert's manipulations as a part of a larger pattern. It's about control, and we cannot allow him to dictate our narrative. Sarah's enthusiasm wheeled under his growing fervor. Then we must gather the facts, share our side while exposing his deceit. This will take careful planning, it's not just about reacting. We need to anticipate his next move. In that moment, Chase felt a hunger to delve deeper, not just to counter Robert but to peel back the layers of their own vulnerabilities. They were both thrust into an emotional roller coaster, but within this chaotic spiral lay an opportunity for profound growth both as individuals and as a team. What will you say? Victor chimed in, pushing away the tension that coiled in the air. That you won't be silent any longer? Show them the human side of your story. Some might hate Robert, but others out there are searching for authenticity. You just have to give them something to connect with. As they brainstormed, Chase's internal compass shifted from regret to urgency. Each suggestion and idea opened a door to a more confident self, a self who would not just survive but thrive. He had been hesitant, adrift in uncertainty, but now he felt grounded, rooted in his purpose to counteract intimidation not with fear, but with outspoken truth. They spent hours refining ideas, letting the energy in the room fuel their resolve. With every keystroke, they chipped away at the tarnishing blade that was Robert's influence, reconstructing their narrative piece by vital piece. Chase found himself lost in the process, exhilarated by the sense of agency filling the void that once gnawed at him. He realized that this situation, the very thing that had threatened to undo him, was carving a new identity, not a fragile one but one born from tenacity. Yet, as dawn broke and their plan began to take shape, the looming question shifted. How far were they willing to expose themselves? What depth of vulnerability was necessary to truly counter Robert's narrative? Just as they were ready to finalize their strategy, a notification chimed yet again. It was from a deep network site. Someone had dug deeper, revealing personal details about Chase's life intertwined with their current predicament. The urgency hit him hard, a gut-clenching realization. They were no longer just challenging Robert, they were on the precipice of being dissected themselves. How much of ourselves are we willing to share? Chase pondered aloud, uncertainty washing over him once more. As they watched the screen refresh, he felt the stakes rising higher still, the urgency building. They had positioned themselves to fight back, but at what cost would this victory come? Whatever it takes, Sarah whispered, her voice an anchor pulling him back to the present, reminding him of the strength ignited under duress. It was a risk, a delicate dance, a harrowing realization that sometimes, to find freedom, they must first confront the ties that bind them. As the tension rippled through the group, Chase braced himself for what was to come, knowing with a resolute clarity that every choice they made now would define not only their path but who they ultimately became in the process. Chase's heart raced, the weight of their situation hanging heavily on his chest. As the notification pulsed on the screen, he felt as if each revelation was not merely another piece of personal information but a weapon aimed at him, threatening to undermine the fragile stability he was fighting to build. Palms sweating, he clenched his fists. They had begun to reclaim their narrative, yet it felt as if the ground beneath him was shifting unpredictably. Should we address this head-on? Victor suggested, breaking the silence, his tone somber yet probing. If they're throwing your past into the mix, maybe it becomes part of our story. Show them how our struggles shaped who we are, expose Robert's tactics in the process. Chase weighed the suggestion, uncertainty tugging at the edges of his resolve. Each detail shared could serve as a beacon of honesty or a risky exposure. What aspects of his life were worth the potential backlash? He had spent so long fabricating layers of protection, crafting a facade that concealed vulnerabilities he dared not reveal. Now, the thought of peeling back those layers frightened him. That kind of transparency, it's risky, he said, his voice wavering slightly. What if they twist it against us? Or what if it draws people to us? Sarah countered, passionate determination echoing in her words. You have a story worth telling, Chase. It humanizes you. The more authentic we are, the more power we'll have. They will see Robert for what he is, and we will not be mere victims. Chase's pulse quickened, each heartbeat a reminder of his own doubts. Could he afford such vulnerability? The scrutiny would amplify, the criticism would sting, yet, what lay beneath the fear was an opportunity to grow, not just as a response to Robert, but as an individual defined by resilience rather than reactivity. Let us draw the line, he finally said, each word calculated. We'll share what we need to, but we'll limit it to what contributes to our narrative. The focus remains on denial, Robert's manipulation, and how he's exploited weaknesses. That shows strength. Victor nodded along, a glimmer of understanding reflecting in his eyes. They were not just participants in a game but purposeful players defining the rules. Each of them began contributing notes to an outline as Chase meticulously catalogued the elements that would rise above dirt and scrutiny, how his past struggles with doubt forged an unyielding identity. This was a chance to rebuild both his personal image and the narrative around his situation. Time stretched as they worked, the walls of the room closing in as they became consumed by thoughts of strategy and revelation. The sunlight began to creep in through the windows, illuminating the faces of his allies, each determined and invested in the collective fight against Robert. As the day wore on and their plan took shape, an unexpected surge of confidence coursed through Chase. For the first time, he could see the outlines of his true self, unpolished yet authentic. He began drafting his statement, a careful acknowledgement of the pain he had endured alongside decisive notes on his journey to reclaim himself. But at the forefront was the realization that this endeavor was no longer just about countering Robert, but about whittling down the fear that hindered his growth. Yet even as hope blossomed, doubt still clawed at him. Were they really ready for the scrutiny that would ensue? Just when he thought they were reaching a conclusion, a chilling realization hit him: the very audience they sought to connect with was also the audience that could destroy them. And what if they don't resonate with our truth? He mused aloud, the heaviness of his concern clouding the room. Then we fight harder to make them see it, Sarah retorted. This isn't just a project, it's who we are. We need to confront those shadows, Chase. If we don't, they will loom over us forever. The intensity of their discussion plunged them deeper into a realm of self-examination, but with every word exchanged, the darkness that surrounded them began to recede slightly. Chase could feel something shifting within, an acknowledgement that while vulnerability was daunting, it was also a powerful catalyst for promoting personal growth. But just as momentum surged in their favor, the door swung open, revealing a figure from the past. A colleague they hadn't anticipated, armed with information that threatened to pull the rug from under their feet once again. Have you heard what Robert's planning next? The colleague asked, uncertainty etched across their face. As Chase looked up, his heart sank. They were not fighting just one battle, they had entered a war that was escalating faster than they could prepare for. Chase clenched his jaw, determination surging anew. The moment of truth for them was swiftly approaching, and its implications were still unfolding. But this time, he welcomed the challenge, aware that every moment spent confronting this chaos would shape who he would become in the end. The fight had only just begun. As the sun cast long shadows through the cafe windows, Chase Donovan and Sarah Thompson sat across from each other, a sense of clarity washing over them. They had spent countless hours crafting and refining their truth. What had begun as a fake alliance was now evolving into a powerful partnership marked by authenticity and unwavering trust. Chase had overcome inertia. No longer a billionaire cloaked in loneliness and societal expectations, he developed into a man equipped with the emotional intelligence to analyze his own fears and ambitions. The decision to stand beside Sarah and confront their mutual adversary, Robert, transformed him deeply. It was no longer about the fabrication of their marriage, it had blossomed, revealing shared vulnerabilities that forged genuine aspirations for both. In the days leading up to the press conference, they had methodically anticipated every criticism, every revelation. They knew Robert's tactics intimately, his attempts to undermine them would not go unanswered. Standing together as allies had allowed Chase to realize the strength in emotional vulnerability. He felt solid confidence the day he gazed into the mirror, no longer simply the billionaire, but a person proud of his journey, ready to face scrutiny, brave enough to tell his story. The anticipation on the day of the press conference was electrifying. Chase found himself embraced by a newfound courage. He could hear the hum of the crowd outside, a reminder of the stakes. Yet this was not the debilitating anxiety that once consumed him. Instead, his heart raced with exhilaration, each beat resonated with purpose. As Sarah spoke eloquently from the podium, commanding the room's attention with her story, Chase's admiration burgeoned, revealing how much they had both grown. He marveled at her poise, her words resonating with honesty, the strength of an artist vibrant in her newly found identity. It was her courage, reflecting brightly against the backdrop of dark manipulations, that inspired him to share his own truths. When his moment to speak arrived, Chase stepped forward, anchoring himself with grounded resolve. "I'm not just a billionaire," he began, each word crafted with intent. "I am a man forged by loneliness, shaped by experiences and failures. I lived in the shadows of my wealth, robbed of the authenticity that true connection brings." The audience hung on his every word, and Chase felt a surge of clarity flowing through him. He shared stories that had long been concealed, tales of doubt tied to his past, unveiling a humanity that connected him with the crowd in ways he had never imagined. The hushed gasps and nods of empathy resonated with him like a beautiful melody. Here was the validation he had long sought, born not from financial success, but from sharing his truth. He and Sarah focused on Robert's manipulations not as victims, but as agency-driven individuals reclaiming their narratives. Together, they dismantled Robert's facade with their raw authenticity, drawing in recognition from the audience as the truth began to resonate. When the press conference reached its crescendo, something remarkable happened. As Chase and Sarah closed their statements, the room erupted into applause, a powerful affirmation of their journey and transformation. The stakes had shifted. The audience recognized the courage they displayed not only in confronting Robert but in confronting their own growing identities. In the days that followed, the tides turned favorably towards them. Media outlets lauded their integrity, commending their authenticity. Articles highlighted their partnership, drawing attention to the strength of vulnerability, which moved beyond merely the personal. It became a philosophy of strength against adversity. As Chase stood next to Sarah in their modest Brooklyn apartment, the newly painted art pieces lining the walls spoke volumes about their growth, illuminating the space with endless possibility. They had learned to navigate their distinct worlds, building each other up instead of living as strangers within the confines of a contractual arrangement. They had emerged significant and whole, now more than mere allies but partners fully embracing their identities. Each day, Chase's heart swelled with a quiet gratitude, reflecting on the distance they had traveled. How together, they had reclaimed not just their narratives, but their very essence. His phone vibrated with yet another notification, a congratulatory message from a friend, highlighting the viral success they had embraced together. Chase smiled, reflecting that the lineage of his journey lay not in the accumulation of wealth but in the transformation of self. "Here's to us," he murmured, raising a glass to Sarah, who beamed back at him, her eyes bright with shared dreams. They both understood that this was merely the beginning. They had conquered their doubts, uncovered their truths, and woven them into the fabric of their lives. Chase felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He was more than a businessman or a billionaire. He was a symbol of resilience, a testament to how vulnerability, when embraced, held the power to elevate and empower. It was time for them to move forward. No chains of expectation could bind them any longer. This is your moment to support the channel. Subscribe immediately to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. You need to leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and ensure these profound journeys reach those who need it. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformation and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who deserve to see such powerful conclusions. Don't wait even one more second to share. The time is now.